this is Dr. Evelyn Hill with Shades in Justice podcast. Hey, we're so excited you decided to stop by. Hey, you can catch us every Wednesday evening, 8:30 Central Standard Time or 9:30 Eastern Time. We want to see you right here at Positive Power Christian Radio. Again, this is Dr. Evelyn Hill with Shades in Justice podcast, a chance where you can hear about justice and injustices here in our country. Again, Dr. Evelyn Hill with Shades in Justice podcast. Hello. This is Dr. Evelyn here with Shades in Justice. And oh my goodness, we are so excited to be here on this evening. Want to celebrate Mr. Jerry Royce for making the big milestone for his show over the year. And Miss Crystal, also our coach, Miss Crystal Henry, for the great work she has done. We're just excited to be here with Positive Power 21 Radio and Podcast. Thank you. You can always catch me, Dr. Evelyn Hill, at www.drevelynhill.net. Oh, my goodness. We have two awesome guests on tonight, Miss Keisha King, all the way from St. Cloud, Minnesota, and Miss Brandy Lewis. And they are joining us from Chicagoland. While we are getting started here, I just want to share this scripture, because what we're going to do tonight is talk about a book on fire. And we recently had published our book called Voices of Women Unleashed in Justice. And these were women across the country that shared their stories. Well, tonight, both Keisha King and Brandy Lewis will be able to kind of like give a virtual review. And so it's going to be awesome to hear these two ladies. But before we bring them to the stage, let me just read this scripture. This is Proverbs chapter 31, verse 9. It says, "Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and the needy." And in that book, Voices of Women Unleashed in Justice, you will hear voices of women that were in some very bad situations, and they share how the Lord brought them out. So anyway, on tonight, we're going to start with Miss Keisha King. How are you, Miss Keisha?
Hello.
Keisha?
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Great. How are you doing? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
All right.
So
good.
To be here tonight.
Very good. Thank you for being willing to join us on tonight. And Miss Brandy Lewis? Hello. Brandy, are you available? Well, Keisha, it sounds like it's me and you. Is that all right?
It sounds like it's just fine with me.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get this show on the road. We've got several people that have clicked in to say they are with us on this evening, so we are excited about that. Now, Keisha, we would like for our audience to learn a little bit about you. Where did you kind of like grow up, and where are you now here in the United States? And a little bit about your childhood.
Whew, that was a lot. Okay, say that again, please.
Tell us a little bit about you growing up. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in St. Cloud or somewhere else in the country?
No, ma'am. I had a privilege of being raised both in Lexington, Mississippi, as well as in the south suburbs, so Chicagoland, what we call K-Town area, and then in the southern suburbs, which is like Harvey and Markham.
Okay, awesome. Well, how did you get to Minnesota?
Oh my. So I have we had a family member. So it's not really a family member. So before I moved here to Minnesota, I was a CNA, and I was helping the community out with some home health care. And one of the ladies that I was working with, she was a quadriplegic, and she had moved because benefits were better for her here in Minnesota. However, when she moved here, things were not as welcoming as they slowly are becoming to be. However, with her having to have the 24-hour care, the services, the companies, the nursing companies that she was working with, she wasn't getting along with the staff. The staff was Caucasian. And that was uncommon for her. So she called me and she asked, would I come up here? Since I knew about her cares, would I come up here and help her? And I came pretty much in August of 2000. And it made sense to me because at that time I had a 9-year-old son and things were getting bad in Chicago. And since they were starting to do a lot of transitioning, I wanted to move out the area anyway. So I moved straight to St. Cloud in September of 2000, and I have been here ever since. So I don't know anything about St. Paul, Minneapolis. When I first moved here, I believe a dentist had asked me, he was like, you mean to tell me that you came from Chicago all the way here? You didn't stop in St. Paul or Minneapolis. Why not? That's where all the black people come from. And I'm like, oh, well, yep, I was already around black people. And, I just really wanted to make a change for my son. To just the reviews that you heard, the school systems was better. It was a touch and go as far as like, were you gonna experience any racism, or how was people of different cultures, how was they gonna treat you? So that's definitely always the fears that you go through when you've been someplace for so long. So definitely came here in 2000. So I've been here for 24 years. So yeah, some stories are good, some stories are not so good.
Okay. Thank you again, Keisha, for joining us. If there is a Miss Brandy Lewis on the line, we'd love to have her. I don't have her number.
Hi, she is on the line.
Okay,
hello,
Miss Brandy, how are you?
I am doing amazing. How about you guys?
Okay, well, we are amazing now that you are on the line. We are super excited. Keisha just shared a little bit about her moving to Minnesota. We haven't quite got to the book yet. We will get to it in just a few seconds, but wanted to allow both of you to just share a little bit about where you are coming from, your childhood. Did you grow up in Chicago? Did you grow up in Minnesota? And how did you meet Keisha? That's a good idea. That's a good question.
Well, my name is Brandy Lewis, and I grew up in Markham, Illinois, which is a south suburban area of Chicago. And I lived in a single-parent home. My mom worked as a legal secretary like the majority of my childhood. And we were a family of 5, which was my mom, my older sister, and my 2 brothers. I met Keisha in Chicago in the Markham Harvey area. The father of her second child was my kid's father's close friend. And when Keisha moved to Minnesota, she moved to Minnesota first, but I met her out here first in in Chicago area. And so we wasn't really close friends or anything like that, but we would double date and stuff like that. And them two, like I said, her his father and my kid's father were close friends. So when they moved to Minnesota, I ended up following them because my kid's father wanted to move out there. You know, it was more opportunity. He didn't have any children at the time, and I had 2 children. And he was telling me that it was easier, you know, for housing and things like that. And it was more of a woman's state, and it kind of helped young mothers, like, get on their feet, which it did. And so there, that's how I got there, St. Cloud.
Okay. Awesome. That is so cool that you all had met before right there in Chicago, and then both of you met again when you got all the way to St. Cloud, Minnesota. So that's pretty awesome. Well, you ladies really excited me. We called tonight's show Book on Fire. And the reason we did is because Keisha calls just so excited about this book and wanted to do all kinds of stuff. So I asked her if she would mind just coming on this podcast with us on tonight. And so, Miss Keisha, when did you first hear about the book, and who kind of told you about it and all of that? And then it's one thing to hear about the book, but it's another thing to actually read at least part of it or some of the book. Kind of tell us your journey when it came into the pages of the book, Voices of Women Unleashed in Justice.
Yes, ma'am. So I knew that, so Buddy had told me, Buddy is my husband, so he had told me that he was going to be traveling to Kansas City with Deborah Lee. So he was going to go down there. He was like, oh, well, you know, they're having a book launch and they're going to listen to the band. And at that time, I knew that there was a book, but I didn't know what the book was called or didn't have any information. So when he came back, he said, well, they sent a book for you. And I said, okay. And I seen the front of the cover. And it probably took me about 3 days before I actually picked it up. And when I picked it up, it was the forwards that had, you know, like they impelled me to continue to read it. And again, it was just like, it was interesting. It was like a opener. Like, go ahead, turn the next page. Like, you know, one of those intriguing books that you're reading, like super juicy. So I wanted to, I continued. And just from the first, it was like, that was like the best story to start the book with. The beginning, the way that she started telling her story, you know, I felt like we were like sitting at a coffee shop and she was just talking to me and I was sitting with my arm on there. And when she started to go into detail about how her daughter felt, when she had to come and visit her in the jail cell. And even though one child was embracing her, another child was looking at her because she was saying, you know, she said from her body language, she felt like she was saying that, like, you're the reason why our relationship is the way that it is. And she had taken the accountability for her actions. And she stood up. She said, I'm going to go to jail. This is what I'm going to do. But it was more or less like you felt every breaking piece when she was describing how her daughter felt. And she took it on that moment that she was going to be determined to do what she could do to, you know, to make sure she was going to make her children proud of her, even though she had this handicap. Well, when, you know, she continued to be in descriptive mode, she was saying that, like, because of how the world accepts us. And that's how I felt when I first moved to Minnesota. I knew that I was a black woman. I knew that I was strong. I knew that I had work ethics. I knew that I was a people's person. And I knew that I needed to take care of my family. But when you're not accepted in places that you say that you live in and in the environment that you live in, you do what's accustomed to you. And she was saying that she had to start going back to selling drugs and found a job in something that she never thought that she would do. It's not many women go into construction first and foremost, let's say that. And then, you know, for her to go and do a job like that, a hard job like that for a woman's body, but she mastered it and found out how she could be able to climb the ladder. And that was just like, I looked at her as more like a role model because she took all of her hardships and she used those as stepping stones and improved her life. And not only did she improve her life when she got to a plateau where she was, successful in life, she reached back to those, to the individuals that's in prison and getting out of prison and helping them reform and talking to them, and being an advocate for them to help them be more successful in life, to let them know that, like, hey, your wrong doesn't determine who you are. So it was that first one that said, okay, you can stay up. You should stay up past 12 o'clock. Keep reading. You ain't got to worry about going to work tomorrow. So, and I kept reading, and I was sharing with some other ladies that, and we were all three of us, as I was reading, we were able to relate to the stories that was in the book. And the one that catches my heart the most is the young lady that talked about her menstrual cycle. And I'm like, wow, she's so vulnerable. Like, I'm like, I want to meet her. Thank you so much for your honesty. Thank you for actually putting this on the map. Because people know that we have menstrual cycles, and they be like, stay away from them. Don't talk to them. Ugh, they crabby. Or you hear women be like, I'm in pain. I can't go to work. So they just, it sounds like to other people like they're complaining, but they don't know the intensity that goes with this form of our body cleansing itself. And for her to go into descriptive mode of like from I felt like she gave me every 7 days that she had to go through within her cycle. But just to also give that education, to you hear a woman talking about it, and then to be able to stand on it and say, hey, if you are experiencing these things, these are things that you can do to avoid those. This is how we can eat. This is how often you should go to the doctor. And right now, looking into our generation, it's not a lot of young women that really even know about their body. It's like, everything is a rush. So it was really good to read some of those stories, to hear another lady say, the way that she looked at Christianity at one point, but at the end, her marriage still fell apart. And it was just almost like, but when she said that we are all sinners saved by grace, then we should not never be judgmental on somebody else, because wherever God just brought you from, they're either experiencing it and they need somebody to stand in the gap for them to say, yes, even if you didn't experience it, like, I know what it feels like to be broken. I know what it's like to just have those hardships on you and we don't have words to fix it, but sometimes embrace is all we need, and the reminder that God is there. So throughout all of those stories that I read, everybody in there was at a struggle, but they held on to God. And when you say that God, I will, He can.
Yes, amen. Well, Keisha, wow, thank you so much for getting into the details of the book. I want to go back to what you said, and Brandy, you're coming on stage in just a few seconds. You said what really got your attention was the foreword. And the foreword was actually written by La Rochelle Young, who is an African-American female mayor of Atchison, Kansas. And she drove from Atchison to Kansas City, Kansas, when we did our book launch. So she is an incredible woman, and I just want to read a couple of sentences out of the book that she wrote. This is what she said, and I'm telling you, she's quite a writer. She says, these stories cut through superficial differences such as race, culture, economic status, and education by uniting us as human beings, striving to evolve into the best versions of ourselves. Now, this is what she also said. To achieve this personal metamorphosis, readers are given example after example of women who redefine their circumstances to free themselves from physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to emerge stronger and victorious in their quest to obtain a better life for themselves and their families, often discovering through faith all things are possible. So you're right. La Rochelle was off the chain. She just knocked that forward out of the park. So thank you for mentioning that and a couple of the other chapters. Miss Brandy, what did you find exciting in this book? And again, the title of tonight's topic is Book on Fire. So, Brandy, you're up.
Okay. Well, this is like my first time doing a podcast, and I kind of like wrote out the answers to like all of my questions. So I got to skip ahead a little bit because I kind of like answered everything. Now, you say this again, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what did you like? Was there anything in particular in the book? Was there any chapter that you would like to highlight that really spoke to you, spoke to your heart, motivated you, encouraged you?
Okay. As far as something speaking to me, I just started reading the book on Monday, and I got through 7 chapters. And the 7 chapters that I have read, I can say that I can relate to something in each one of those chapters. You know, like with the first chapter with the young lady saying she was surviving the streets, I too can say that I survive the streets. You know, I was in a gang when I was younger as well, and I had to overcome that. And one of the things that helped me overcome being in a gang was one of my best friends. She was in a gang as well. Like, we both were in it together, but she ended up getting murdered. And and she was pregnant, you know, with my brother's baby. So she was 9 months pregnant, and she ended up getting shot and killed. So fast forward, I know, you know. Fast forward about 9 months, I found myself in a situation of being pregnant as well. And I'm thinking to myself, this cannot be my outcome. So I immediately planned an exit on how I was going to get out of this gang, you know. So I just started focusing on myself, and I'm like, I'm not this person. I'm going to be a mom. I want to show my child something different. And I immediately just started going to school. You know, I had got my GED at 16, but while I was pregnant with my daughter, I was going to a school like called Computer Learning Center, and it was teaching me computer business, you know. So that I would be pregnant and going to school, you know, with my child instead of trying to find a better life for her. So I understood that part of her saying that she had to survive the streets. I too felt like I had to survive the streets. And then also, you know, with like domestic violence, you know, I was in a relationship with the father of my first child, you know. I felt like, you know, I was in a domestic violence relationship with him. And going back to the book, you know, this was a little different because in the book, the young woman was saying that her mom had passed away and her father had to raise them, but he didn't really know, you know, what to do when they got older, but to tell them to go to, I believe, the Air Force or something like that, or get married. So she decided to go to a church. So once she went to the church, and, you know, I guess it was a young gentleman in there said that he wanted to start dating her. So he talked to the pastor and, you know, started courting her and all these things. And the next thing, you know, she was pregnant, and now she's married with these children. And it turned out to be like a disaster pretty much. And I kind of felt, you know, when you go to church, you feel as if you are at a safe space. You want to meet the people in the church, and the people that's in the church, you feel that they are God-fearing and things of that nature as well. And to be disappointed in that way, you know, I know that pretty much had to kind of take her, like strip her faith and everything from her, but she managed to pull through it. She managed to, the guy, her husband actually gave her out. So in that instance, you can go, well, look at God, because God will use the devil to do whatever it is he needs for, you know what I'm saying? So he pretty much used the abuser to introduce her to the counselor, so that the counselor was teaching her ways of how she can get out. But her voice was not developed yet, but she wanted her children to have that same opportunity to get out, and her son was the one who actually saved her by using that information that he had got from her. So being a woman and being in domestic violence and trying to get out of a domestic violence situation, I never called the police or anything like that, but I mean, I've always prayed. I've always had a mother who kind of had my back, and if I said, hey, Mom, this was going on, she would stand 10 toes down with me and be like, okay, no, this just can't be. I always had a strong person around me to help me get out of that, along with my faith. So, I mean, I could relate too, because when you're actually in that situation, you're like, well, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this, especially when you have children and you want to create that 2-parent home for these children, but then you got to come to realize and say, you know what? Me being in this relationship is not being any good for my children, because I don't want my kids to see me being abused. I don't want them to think that that's okay for, them to get abused when they get older. So my children was part of the reasons why, the main reason why I got out of that situation, because I had 2 daughters, so I didn't want them to see that. And, another one, is like with the young lady that was talking about healthcare and things of that nature. And, once again, with the menstrual cycle and things like that, it wasn't until like my 3rd daughter that I had, because my older 2 teenage daughters, they were just, I would say, they were teenagers. So they spoke back, they did all these things that, teenagers act like, they act like aliens. Once they get that age, they laugh, they act like they don't know you, they're just I can't say awful people, but they're awful. So but my third child, she was always different. She never gave me any problems or anything like that. But every now and again she would, act out. And I'm like, and I paid more attention to her acting out than the other 2, because it's like they always did that. You know what I'm saying? But versus this particular child. So she would act out, and then 1 week later, she'd be like, Mom, I need some maxi pads. And I would sit here and I had to make that that connection. Like, she acting out because of this period, this menstrual cycle. So once I caught on to that, I'm like, well, when she starts saying that, I just start going to the store getting Reese's and ice cream and chips. And I just left it in the house for her, to kind of to soothe her, because I didn't understand that as a parent, and why my children might have been acting out. I didn't understand why I would have been acting out, growing up. So that my 3rd child had to teach me about that. And even now, as I'm an adult and older, about to start going into menopause, I feel like that menstrual cycle, it controls everything for like 3 weeks out of the month for me. Like I can feel every emotion. If I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm depressed, I'm depressed. It's like 10 times, and it's like it gets stronger and stronger. As I get older, I can feel them 10 times stronger. Like whatever emotion it is, it's like, okay, here's this period here. Okay, I'm be bloated for 3 days. It's just crazy. But knowing your body and knowing you can prevent you from being this mad, crazy woman they call us, you know what I'm saying, when we're on our period. And I kind of let people know. I let people know, hey, or my the guys or whatever that I was dating at the time, like, hey, I'm on my menstrual cycle. I just want to let you know that You know, so if I do act out a certain way, I want to give you a heads up. It's just me going through this. It's not me actually lashing out at you. I need to learn how to handle this for me so I can, you know, communicate better with you and, you know, all of those things. So, so that kind of stood out to me as well.
And Brandy, that is so awesome. So two things you mentioned was just information on the menstrual cycle and how it can affect you, and it helped you to even you yourself was able to connect with your daughter's behavior being surrounded with the menstrual cycle. So that is pretty cool information. And then secondly, being able to relate to the street. Of course, I didn't know you. I knew Keisha, but I had no idea that you were formerly a member of the gang. And so no wonder you said that maybe in the future, if we did a volume 2, you would like to participate in that opportunity. So, wow, thank you for that. I want to ask both of you ladies now, kind of couple things. I know we're planning to do a book launch in Minnesota on the 20th. And what would you like for the audience to hear, just in regards to attending the book launch or purchasing this book? Are there words of encouragement that you would like to give to our audience on this evening? We'll start with Keisha.
So I would say go out and get the book. The title alone, Women's Voices Unleashed in Justice. So, you know, there is one of the authors in there that gives a very wonderful description of how injustice looks when there's some form of pain, trauma, brokenness, loss, lied on. Anything that we all have experienced, no matter what race, what background you have, there is a story that's in there that you can relate to. It's empowering because if you're still holding on to it, in those stories you can find yourself a place of release, a place of like let go, a place of being able to say, I am not the only person, or you know what, my situation isn't that bad, when there's always someone that has a situation worse than mine. But however, this is through their stories, you can be able to not implement, but also make the same courageous moves and either make change and improve or let something go so that you're able to improve. So go out, get the book. It's empowering. It's helpful. It's beneficial. It enlightens your soul. And if you have any young kids, it is historical. It's stories that's in there that you can be able to say, see, I'm not crazy. Grandma may not be here to tell you these stories, but listen, this lady also had to go through. And this is some of the things that in our historical movies of what is just most common in our culture that we do. So because those are not conversations that's in schools. Or those
that's conversations. Correct. Yeah.
Life has
definitely
changed.
Not at school. Yeah.
No, and because our life has changed in certain areas, no matter where you are across the world, those conversations in those books, in this particular book, are not regular conversations that you see people having on a regular basis right now. We suppress our past, we suppress our trauma, and this gives you a way to say, hey, it's okay to speak up and say, hey, I've been raped. Hey, I have issues with my menstrual cycle. Hey, I've seen somebody be murdered. Hey, I just need somebody to say, hey, too. So, I mean, it's all of that. Who heals us? God heals us. Everyone says that, like, I have a relationship to a higher power. If you have a relationship to a higher power, however you define him, and you know that there is one God, then there's also room for growth. So, you know, let's go out here, pick up the book, encourage yourself so that you can be able to have a complete mindset and make improvements in your life. I encourage you to go get the books. I encourage any of you that is on this line today, if you live in St. Cloud, Minnesota, please make sure you come out on September 20th at Stur's History Museum from 5 to 8 p.m. We would love to see you there. There will be authors there that you can meet, that can be able to converse with you about the book, come purchase a book, get it signed, but we definitely want to see you. So please help support Dr. Evelyn Hill and all the other authors that's in the book. Just to say a shout out to say I appreciate it will be more than enough. God bless.
Well, thank you so much, Keisha, for sharing that information. And well, you all did a great job. This is kind of like a virtual book review. And so we want to share this more and more. And we have other people who have asked for your email address and all because they're interested in having you on their show also. Miss Brandy, what would you say if you were given a review of this book? Kind of what are some of your high points you would share if you were to encourage someone else about this book?
Well, The Voices of Women Unleashed in Justice is not just a book. It is 21 beautiful women of color with 21 different voices of women waiting to be heard, with 21 struggles and 21 victories. And after reading, like, the chapters that I've read in this book, it kind of gives me courage. It gave me the courage to somehow want to speak about my truth. So when I picked up this book, I felt like I needed this book. I felt like my soul needed this book. And looking at the 21 faces of courageous women being bold enough to speak their truth somehow gave me the idea that I can too be courageous, and that this book is just what I needed to start my fire and get me out of the sunken place that life had put me in. And the compassion that the authors had to overcome, the compassion that the authors had to overcome their circumstances and change their outcomes from victims to victors. That takes strength, that takes confidence, that takes courage. And there are so many different women that are going through these things that don't have an outlet for them, to express what's going on, to even, to talk to someone about it. And this book right here, when they read that, they can see that they are not alone. They can see that, they too can start journaling. Like, it was one author in here. I love the fact that she highlighted different things that you can do when you're going through these things and you're trying to get out of that sunken place. She first highlighted that you should start journaling. You should start writing goals. You should, put down some things that you want to get accomplished, just small things that's attainable, because you don't want to put out these big old goals that you can't obtain, because then you'll feel like you've been defeated, especially when you're already in a place where you already feel defeated. She's teaching you ways on how to actually crawl out of that space so you can become a victim, So, I mean, this book is on fire. It got me on fire. You hear me? It really got me, because I'm telling you, I've been dealing with things like for over the past year, but these are things that I'm supposed to deal with. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in my life, and God will put you in a place just so you can get closer to Him, and you have to rely on Him, and He will give you the tools and everything that you need to get out of what He put you through. So this book was right on time, and I'm sitting here trying to find my voice, trying to find my power. And when I seen this book, I looked at it, and the name alone already intrigued me. And then when I looked on the back of the book and seen all those beautiful women, beautiful, strong women who were speaking their truth, I was totally invested in. And I said, hey, I got to have this. I know I need this. From the things that I'm going through right now, I know for sure this book is going to help me get out of my sunken place. And I appreciate this book. I really do. And this is going to be something that I will say in the future that kind of helped me jumpstart me getting out of the situation that I'm in, So this is most definitely a must read. And I feel like this right here should be something for people. That, like, it should be in colleges. It should be everywhere for women. Like, if it's a women group, women classes or whatever, I think this book should be something for them. This should be probably even introduced to kids in high school. You know what I'm saying? Because the common stuff happened as a child, too,
Yes. There are many stories in the book where injustices happened to these authors when they were children. So you're absolutely right. We could definitely do better about getting this out. So whenever you want us to come to Chicago, I'm sure some of the authors will join us, and we'll come to Chi-Town and be able to share our stories there too. And we also may look forward to you and Keisha being a part of Volume 2. Our coach, Crystal Henry, is the one who actually published the book. We have gathered all the stories together, and she did a lot of work to pull this together. So we do a shout out for Crystal every week, and we're just so grateful to have met her on her cruise to Mexico a year ago, last year. She and Miss Gigi, Miss Gaynor, along with Chantel Starr and Dr. Ivy Anderson and Dr. Diana, we were all, and of course Dr. Clark, we were all on a cruise together. We did not know each other, but that's where we met, and that was the beginning of, I think, this anthology. We had no clue we were going to do an anthology at that particular point. Even getting back in town didn't have a clue. But as you can see, it did happen. So we're excited, and we are anticipating beginning of Volume 2. So we are just about out of time. I certainly want to thank you, ladies. Do you have any words as we go off the air? Just a short thing, a motivational something before we go off the air. Keisha?
I'm so sorry. Can you say, do I have anything motivational that I would like to say?
Yeah, just in closing.
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that one.
Okay,
yes, I would say trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not to our own understanding and all thy ways.
You can't go wrong. Yeah, you can't go wrong with the Word of God. That's excellent. Thank you.
So if you just hold on to God's hand, everything will be okay.
Okay, excellent. Brandy?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to let people know that we all were victims of something, and I would like to just encourage women to always seek to be the best versions of themselves, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and which means that we might have to look at ourselves to see what is causing us to prevent us from getting to that version of ourselves. And if that means that we have to remove ourselves from environments that is causing chaos and things that are in our lives so we can obtain mental peace, sometimes you just, you have to, I can't I feel crazy. I'm so sorry, y'all. I feel like I'm just pulling stuff out, and I'm sorry, but just like through, I can't even talk. I'm so sorry.
You're doing an excellent job. I think you're right on point.
I feel like I'm put I just got put on the spot. It's like now my brain said, nope, you're done. But just for women to, to constantly seek that higher power. We always, you can't go wrong with seeking that higher power, because We always feel alone sometimes, but we're never alone when, you have God right there always. He said he'll never leave us nor forsake us. So we always have him. And when you know that you can get through anything.
Absolutely. And thank you, ladies. Thank you both for being willing to share on tonight. This has been incredible. It's absolutely book on fire. These stories are phenomenal. And to hear your stories tonight just made it even the more special. This has been an incredible few minutes together, and I certainly want to thank you, thank those who are listening in with us on this evening, and we're just excited to be here. We know that God is doing some incredible things. We are watching the Lord just move some stuff like I've never seen him move before. And so we know it's, just part of the end times, and this is just our season. He's empowering us to speak the truth. So we thank God for this movement. I got you, Miss Chantel. I thank God for this movement. And so we just want to encourage everyone, if you haven't picked it up, you can get it ebook for like $3.99 on Amazon. And it's called Voices of Women Unleashed in Justice. Hey, everybody, thank you again for joining us at Shades in Justice podcast. And we'll see you again next Wednesday night. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for being at our show on tonight. This is Dr. Evelyn Keel with Shades in Justice podcast. Another great evening to be alive. Hey, this is Positive Power Christian Radio. Dr. Evelyn Keel with Shades in Justice podcast. Hey, see you next time. You can meet me every Wednesday at 8:30 Central Standard Time or 9:30 Eastern Standard Time right here at Positive Power Christian Radio. See you next time. Bye.
You're listening to Worldwide Podcast.